All right, everyone. Thank you for logging into the Chesterbrook Road Walkway Project meeting. It's now 7 o'clock, so we're going to kick off the meeting. My name is Mark Van Zant, and I'm with the Fairfax County Department of Transportation. And before we move into the rest of our presentation, I wanted to make a quick introduction here to start us off. Supervisor Faust is joining us tonight from the Drainsville District. Supervisor Faust, would you like to make any opening remarks before we get started?
Well, thank you, Mark. Just basically, I want to thank staff for getting us to this point, but especially want to thank all the community volunteers who've done just an amazing job of helping us deliver pedestrian facilities on Kirby and Chesterbrook. I mean, it's come a long way, and this is a major step in completing that journey. So thank you, one and all.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Faust. So before we get started, I do want to just let everyone know that we are recording the presentation tonight. We're planning to post it on our project website for anyone's future reference. So this is our agenda for tonight's meeting. We're going to go through the purpose and need for the project. We'll discuss, we'll provide an overview of all the design elements that go into this project, including a discussion of some of our more major issues that we have to deal with. We're going to talk about our project schedule, and then we're going to close with public comment and questions. So we would ask that you hold all your questions until we're done with the presentation. So I'm not going to introduce everyone on our project team, but I'm with the Transportation Design Division here at the county. Our project manager for this project, Max Hojatzadeh, he's also with Transportation Design. We've engaged the services of Rinker Design Associates, RDA. We have a representative from them here with us tonight, Adam Welschenbach. Adam and Max are going to be delivering a portion of our presentation this evening. This project was also put together by our Capital Projects Division, and we'll also be engaging the services of our Department of Public Works for the land acquisition and the construction administration portion of the project development process. So this is our project. We're planning to install a 5-foot wide concrete sidewalk on the south side of Chesterbrook Road between Maddox Lane in the west and 41st Street in the east. Our goal with this project is to fill in missing links in the walkway network so we can provide better neighborhood connectivity within the project limits. One of the things that we'll also do is address any ADA issues within the project limits and other issues that we encounter, such as drainage issues, and there are plenty of those along Chesterbrook Road. We're going to be putting in curb and gutter, and also a closed system, so that means there'll be a drainage pipe under the ground to collect storm water and take it away from the roadway. As for our meeting tonight, we're coming to you at the very beginning of the project development process. So we have not progressed the design. So it's good because we can take your feedback. We want your feedback so we can incorporate your ideas into the project. But on the other hand, we're also probably not going to be able to answer some of your really detailed questions because we just haven't reached that level of the design yet. But we really need your feedback so we can keep the project moving forward in a manner that's consistent with the wishes of the community. So briefly, I just want to talk about the existing conditions out on Chesterbrook Road. As I mentioned, there's no continuous pedestrian facilities within our project limits. We have a very limited shoulder width. There's utilities, both aerial utilities and underground utilities that are under the road and under the shoulder or just outside the roadway section that we're going to have to contend with. There's trees, bushes, miscellaneous landscaping up and down the project that's right up next to the road. And there's drainage problems that occur throughout the roadway in this area. all these are some of the more major issues that we're going to have to deal with as we move forward. So this is a typical section of what we're proposing the project to look like. We have the roadway here on the bottom left of the screen. We're not proposing any major roadway modifications. What we would do is add a curb and gutter at the edge of the travel lane. We would have a grass buffer area and then a 5-foot wide sidewalk before we tie into the adjacent property. This image on the right is an image of the Chesterbrook Road sidewalk project that we recently completed. This is a shot that's just west of Maddox Lane. Note the curb and gutter right up next to the travel lane, the grass strip, and then the concrete sidewalk behind the grass buffer. This is the same typical section that we would look to extend all the way to 41st. One issue that people that live in this area are probably very familiar with is the flooding that occurs from time to time at the intersection of Chesterbrook and North Albemarle. The county actually has a separate project that we're going to do at this intersection to address stormwater issues. This project is being led by the Department of Public Works Stormwater Division. We're proposing to upgrade all the stormwater facilities at this intersection to address these flooding issues. Our project, the Sidewalk Walkway project that we're talking about tonight, is a separate project that's going to come in behind this. We're working together with that team. We're going to tie our storm drain system, our sidewalk and curb and gutter into the facilities that this other project puts in before we get out there. So I just want you to know that we are working on this issue, and it's something that our project teams are coordinating on. The next place I want to take everyone tonight is the west end of the project. This is near Maddox Lane. There's a large existing box culvert that runs under Chesterbrook Road. The edge of the box culvert is visible from the road. It's this concrete structure here in the photo on the left. We're going to do a little bit different typical section crossing this culvert. We're going to use the concrete surface of the culvert as our walking surface. So rather than install a separate sidewalk over the top of the culvert, we're going to tie the sidewalk into the culvert, and then people would walk across the culvert to get to the sidewalk on the other side. So we would also not be extending the curb and gutter across the culvert. It would stop at each end. So there'd be a small section, a 50 to 75-foot section where there's no curb. So what we would do is we would put in a tubular marker or something that would separate the travel lane from the top of the box culvert where people would walk. We would also put in a handrail on top of the culvert to keep people from falling into the stream. The next area I wanted to talk about was another culvert on the east end of the project near 41st Street. We have a little bit different issue at this culvert. There's actually not enough room to put a sidewalk on top and maintain everything we need to maintain along the roadway. So in this case, we actually have to extend the culvert. So this view is from the stream, and the roadway is up on the top of the picture up here. So the image on the top left, that's a cross-sectional view of what the culvert looks like. This is where we would extend the culvert approximately 10 feet, and we would then put dirt fill in here to make the area adjacent to the roadway larger, so we could put the sidewalk in next to the road. So what I want you to see on this bottom image here, this is the plan view from the drawings that are posted on the website. So what you're looking at here is the box culvert from above, or the plan view. This dark blue line here is the 10-foot extension of the culvert, and this green area here is the area that we would be putting in fill to tie the sidewalk down to the level of the land that's along the stream. So you can see there's a big grade difference here. So we have to put in a fair amount of fill in this area to get everything to tie together. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Adam to talk about the next issue for our project.
Good evening, Adam Olchenbach. One of the issues that we have along this corridor is potential off-tracking a vehicle. As you can see in the photo on the left, you can see that larger vehicles sometimes scrape into the grass area adjacent to the roadway. So in coordination with VDOT, they asked us to look at off-tracking, particularly with introducing curb. So we have 3 areas where we're going to potentially widen the road just a little bit so that the vehicles can traverse the roadway in a manner that keeps them on the roadway and not startle people by hitting the curb as they traverse the curb. The first location is on Chesterbrook at Quail Hollow Court, which is in this picture here. We're widening the road approximately 2 to 3 feet, and you can see by the purple line here, that is the existing right-of-way, so there will be no property acquisition for this right-of-way widening. Mark, if you go to the next slide. Second location is just prior to, just after North Arnold Street. Again, here, same deal. We have potential widening for the off-tracking to ensure that the vehicle stays in their lane and not go over into the yellow area, into the oncoming traffic, and also to ensure that they stay in their lane and don't startle people on the new sidewalk. Again, this is for the off-tracking for vehicles to stay in the roadway and not hit the curb that was newly installed. Just want to point out that there's a slight bit widening and again, some minor temporary easements to install the drainage structures and driveway. Next slide. This is the last location. We do have potential right-of-way impacts here, but that is mostly for the sidewalk. You can see here by the very small amount of roadway widening by the crosshatch adjacent to the roadways. We are literally talking about a foot. So the right-of-way take would be more for the sidewalk project part of it versus the roadway. But again, this is to ensure that the vehicles stay in the lane and do not startle the pedestrians that are on the roadway. So that is the goal, and that's all I have, Mike. Back to you and Max.
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much again to attending this meeting for tonight. In couple slides, I'm going to show some other important element we proposing for this project. The first slide you see here is curb ramp, which is we are going to install 8 curb ramp at the between for this project, for interior project. The curb ramp, as you see, is similar to the on the right side, the image you see, and this is the chain link between the sidewalk and all curb and gutter. Next one, Mark. The next element, important element, we are proposing and we are studying to installing mid-block crosswalk as 2 locations. One of them Forest Lane and one of them Brookside Road. And the reason we chose these 2 locations, as you see on the north side of this entrance, we have a lot of housing and community at that on the north side. And this is a good location if the people, they want to crossing the road and using this proposed sidewalk. And the right side, you see the image. This is just example recently done and constructing for this project. Next one, Mark. Another element is really important element. We are going reconstructing almost most of the entrance, drive entrance for each property. And the number of entrance is almost 14 entrance will be modified and reconstructed similar to the on the image you see on the right side with the apron concrete and connecting to existing entrance for each property. And I understand some of them, this property, they have a 2 driveway, which is we are going to reconstructing both driveway and connecting to the sidewalk. Next one, please. The next slide is showing the number of the easement or we involved with this project is a total of 23. The partial will be impacted with this project, and from this 23 partial is 11 partial. We need some kind dedication to constructing this sidewalk and probably relocating the utility. Next one, please. Another element is relocation or we have definitely potential relocation, utility relocation. And this is the list of the all utility that we are going involved with this project. On the right side, you see the image. This is just shot of the area, one area for this project. And you see is we are involved with the water, gas line, and underground utility, which they have to be relocated for this project. Next one, please. This is the schedule. This is the summary of the schedule. We are from probably very soon we're going to start starting the design and continue to get the 90% design completed on December 2022. After finish the design, we need to get the plat and the land acquisition will be start on 2023, May 2023. Land acquisition at this point is very important. To this land acquisition will be contact you. The agent of land acquisition will be contact you for negotiation and the more detail for each property. And we should be complete that one on March 2024. After all the land acquisition is complete, we need to go to utility relocation, which is scheduled and which be completed on September 2024. And after that is construction will be start, which is October 2024, and hopefully we finish the construction on summer 2025. Next slide, please. And Mark is going to continue with the other comment. Mark is moved.
Sorry about that. Thanks, Max. That brings us to the end of our formal presentation with the project. We now want to address any questions or comments that anyone has about what we presented or what the intent of the project is. Now, when we do this tonight, since there's a lot of people that are logged in, we do want to try and keep the questions more general as opposed to specific comments about people's property, just so everyone can stay engaged in the conversation. We understand that these specific questions about people's property are very important, and for that reason, we have scheduled an open house at the Drainsville District Office on November 30th from 3:30 to 6:30. We are going to be sending a letter out about that, and we're announcing it here tonight. For anyone that's comfortable coming out in public, Max and I would be there to answer any specific questions that you had about what might happen to a certain element of your property. We also, if you're not comfortable or you can't make that time, we can meet individually with people. You would just contact us through the project website or emailing Max. So additionally, the project website that's up there, we're going to post the presentation from tonight. And also, if everyone has noticed, there's a exhibit board that's on the website that you can go to see all the specific elements of our project, where the sidewalk would be across every property within the project limits as the design stands today. We would like you to submit comments by December 10th, so that would allow us to move on with our project development process and get on to the next phase of the design. So just a few housekeeping items when we go into question and answer, because it's a little more difficult in the virtual format. Robin from our communications team is with us tonight. She's going to manage our question and answer period. We're going to answer questions in the order everyone raises their hand. If you're on Teams, there's a button on the top that you can click on to raise your hand. If there's any phone callers, you use *5 to raise your hand. When Robin calls your name, just remember to unmute and ask your question. And then when you're done, if you could put your hand down, just so we know you've asked your question. And then if you put your hand up again, we'll know that you want to ask an additional question. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Robin to see if there is anyone with their hands up in the audience tonight.
Okay, thank you, Mark. We do have some questions, so I'm going to try to do my best to go in the order they're raised, but we will get to you. So we'll start with Rich Cohen. Unmute yourself. There you go.
Hi,
Hey.
thank you for putting on this program. In my exercising, I walk along this stretch of highway several times a week, and I'm well aware of the problems and the need for the sidewalk. So I commend you for doing that. And I've lived right off of I've lived on Chesterbrook Vale Court, which is right across from Maddox Road. My wife and I have been there for 35 years. I'm just curious, just as a point of information, can you give us some sense of what will be the cost of this project? Again, I fully support it, but I'm just curious what the expected price will be. Thank you.
Max, do you have the
Yes,
scoping price at your fingertips?
Yes, probably this is a preliminary estimate. It's not really final. The preliminary estimate they're showing is almost 3 million, almost 3.5 million for cost of this project.
Thanks, Max.
Sure.
Thank you, Max.
Thanks.
Our next question can come from JP and Claudia. You just unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you very much. This is Claudia Angelone. I'm just checking. A beautiful presentation, by the way, and a lot of good information. We know that there's a lot of incredibly gorgeous trees that are coming down as a result of this project. Do you have any plans, one, either to preserve some of that, or do you have any landscaping included in this project to regenerate that beauty?
So that's a great question. And doing a lot of these projects and going into communities, we do understand that trees, especially mature trees, are definitely part of the character of the community. Unfortunately, with projects like this, there's tree loss that is inevitable with the project, just because, as you all know, there's trees that are very close to the roadway. So what we have not done to this point, what we will do as the project development process moves forward, is we'll do a tree inventory, and we'll look for strategies that in our toolbox, per se, that we can use to mitigate tree loss. Some examples of that would be, instead of using a 4-foot grass buffer, like I showed you earlier in the presentation, maybe it's a curb abutted sidewalk that allows us to skirt by a tree and not impact its root zone. So another option we might have is using a curb behind the sidewalk or using a small retaining wall to limit our grading and back into people's properties. But again, like I said, even with all these little tricks that we might be able to employ, there will be tree loss on this project for sure. So that moves into the second part of your question. Oh, I do want to mention that we do engage an arborist after we get the design to a point where we really are comfortable with our grading limits. We'll have an arborist come out and look at it to see, number one, are there trees that we think we're saving, but we're really not? We don't want to leave a problem for a homeowner out there after we leave the project site. And two, are there trees that we think we're impacting, but maybe the type of tree would allow or would tolerate work closer to its root zone? So those are the things that we'll be doing as we move forward with the project. Now, to get into your second part of your question, we do compensate homeowners for tree loss when the trees are on their property. We do that during the land acquisition process. So I know that the removal of a tree, it's difficult to replace, but that is the way that we compensate a homeowner for the loss of something like that. We don't do planting plans on our projects. The reason for that is that our work limits, our right-of-way line goes only to a point that's right behind the sidewalk. So we're not planting. If we were to replant, it wouldn't be planting within the public right-of-way. It'd be planting on your property. So it's not really something that we can go back and maintain and be responsible for into the future. So what we do is we compensate the property owners to replant what they want, where they want it on their property. Does that answer your question?
It does. This is JP, the other half. So as you work through all these decisions and as it affects a homeowner's property, do you work with them individually on what your decisions are going to be? We have 3 big 60-foot trees that are gorgeous. They're in Fairfax County. They're not on our property, but even though if you could work around them, or I know at least one of them, if not 2 of them are history. Do you work with the homeowners as you go through that process?
Yeah, absolutely. So those are great things to set up an individual meeting for,
Okay.
or come out and talk to us at the open house. But things like that, or I don't know, something that might be important on your property that we don't see. Maybe it's a technical thing like a under drain from your downspout, or maybe it's a stacked stone rock wall, and you want, if we hit it, you want the stone put on the other side of your driveway in a neat pile so you can put it somewhere else on your yard. You know, like we deal with little issues like that we encounter on our projects all the time. And if you have any concerns like that, yeah, definitely raise them to Max and I, and we'll try and find a solution as we move forward.
Okay, and someone else had already said this is a massive project, and appreciate all the hard work you've put into it. We just bought this home in August, and good news is we're tearing it down and going to build a custom home. But that side of the property on Crescent Lane we're on Crescent Lane. The Chesterbrook part of it impacts, I think, very little of our actual property. It's just the beauty thing, and what we can figure out working together. But I appreciate your time. Do you have something else? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Our next question will come from Kathleen. And Kathleen, if you can unmute yourself. Thank you. see.
Kathleen, can you hear me? Can you hear
Oh,
me?
yes, yes, we can hear you now. Thank you.
Thanks. So my husband and I have been a resident on Chesterbrook for like 25 years. First of all, I'd like to correct the previous caller that it's not a highway. It's a road, and it used to be a country road, and that's the problem that people like I have living on this road and having it, the speed limit. No one pays attention to the speed limit, and they fly down the roads. My question to the drainage supervisor is, what will you do about the fact that more sideways give more clear cut to people speeding down the roads, going even faster?
So that's something that I'm not sure if that's the history of that issue. It sounds like there may be an ongoing problem with that in the community. That is something that we can look into. I mean, VDOT is the one that owns the road and sets the speed limit. So the county to come in and change the speed limit is probably not something that could happen. But again, I'm not sure on the background of that particular issue.
Well, it's actually McLean, the police station, that runs the speed limit there, and they're understaffed, and they don't have enough people to patrol the street. So it's like the fact that there's the sidewalk comes down the first part of Chesterbrook means that people can see right through, and they're driving faster. Trust me, I've lived here for 25 years, and I see it every day. And I think it's great. We're trying to put a sidewalk in. I like the fact that you're putting a walkway in front of our house, which is on Chesterbrook and Forest. But you have to realize that when you guys put a sidewalk in and cut down trees, the side people driving down now is going to they're going to be going faster. Have you guys taken into account any of that with this project? Is my question to you.
My last comment, I just meant that VDOT is the one that sets the speed. They're the owner of the road, and they're the ones that post the speed. You're right, though, that McLean or the local police department is the one that would enforce the speed limit. As far as a speed study for the project, no, we have not done a speed study for the project. I guess that would be something that we would have to look into a little further as we move forward. But
thank you. I appreciate that. I'm not trying to take the meeting offline. I'm just making my concerns voiced here tonight. Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, our next question will come from AJ Board. And if you unmute yourself.
Yeah, hi there. Actually, my first question was answered about the compensation for landscaping and tree removal. But that kind of sparked another question. If there's a right-of-way on your property, is that the piece that you might have to acquire, or is that typically land beyond that that easement right-of-way that's along Chesterbrook?
So I'm gonna back up to a slide and just talk more about this one a little bit, and hopefully in the course of my answer, I answer your question. So this is an example from the exhibit that's posted on our webpage. Now, the main elements of this that I want everyone to make sure they come away with an understanding of is the existing right-of-way line shown in purple here is where the current extent of the property is, and that's the start of the public right-of-way. So if we have some element of our project that extends beyond that purple line, then we then need to buy a little sliver of right-of-way for the project. So if there's a drainage inlet, if there is I don't know, if the sidewalk's got to bubble out to go around a tree, say, then we would buy land beyond this purple line, and that land would then become part of the public right-of-way. Now, there's another type of easement that Max spoke about briefly during his part of the presentation. So there's permanent easements. Permanent easements are dedicated right-of-way, which is what I just described. And then there's also temporary easements that we could buy. So in that case, like it's shown in this picture here, here's the public right-of-way, this purple line. Now, in this case, this 5-foot sidewalk fits within the land that we already own. But to put the sidewalk in here, we do need to do a little grading behind the sidewalk. So in that case, we would get a temporary easement, which is this orange line, to allow us to put a little topsoil behind the sidewalk to make everything tie together. And then at the conclusion of the project, that land would go back to the property owner. Same for a driveway. We can't replace your driveway without going on your property. So we would buy a temporary easement to do your driveway work, and then the ownership of your driveway would then revert back to the property owner. Does that answer your question, or?
That does. I actually have kind of a follow-on to that kind of ties into the landscaping question. If I'm thinking about potentially, redoing that or reworking that, and I have a lot of landscaping within that current easement, which my guess is probably a permanent easement, is that stuff I can assume is just going to go bye-bye, and how should I start thinking about my kind of property in terms of the timing with your schedule and like when you guys will know little particular details like that?
I think that is a great thing that we should talk about sooner rather than later. I think to really answer your question, I think we would need to look at the plan for your property and go through the exact area that you're talking about. So I don't know that I could do that right now, but if you set up a time or come to the open house, we would be glad to run through those questions with you.
Okay, great. That's all I had. Thank you. I do agree with everyone else that it's much needed. I know there was a pedestrian death there a few years ago, which, surprised doesn't have more. So thank you guys for your work.
Okay, thank you. Okay, our next question will come from Jay Parker. If you'll unmute yourself. Thank you.
Thanks. Hi, guys. Appreciate the information. I think all I have is a request with some more detail on the website, kind of what you just described with each line. I think it'd be a lot easier to view the layout that you have as a link for those. Thanks, Vivian. For those of us that can't get to the open house on the 30th. Don't need it early. I just think that would help all of us be able to remotely check this out and have more better questions in the future. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. Our next question will come from Betty. And if you could unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, so I guess following on JP's suggestion, will the slides just be put up as part of that project website?
Yes, we'll post the slides for the presentation along with how we narrate it. Like the actual presentation will be on the website as well for anyone that wants to go back and look at it.
Okay, that's great. Okay, and my second question had to do with the what you call extra pavement due to vehicle off tracking. When you add the pavement, does that mean it gets added to the other side of the road, or is it on the same side of the road as the sidewalk?
Adam, do you want to take that question?
All the improvements will be on the same side as the sidewalk. So the answer to the question would be on the side of the improvements that we'll add in the sidewalk. We have no plans to propose anything on the other side of the roadway. We want to keep the project scope to the side of the sidewalk that we're constructing the sidewalks.
Okay,
I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, okay, and then this probably is part of the same, I'll get the same answer, which is the curb and gutter that goes on there is only going to be on the sidewalk side, correct? The other side just like gets left alone.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Our next question will come from Susan G. If you'll unmute your mic. Susan? Try one more time, Susan, to unmute your mic if you can unmute yourself. Try a couple more times. Sometimes it doesn't take. It's happened tonight. So let's see. There you go. I think I hear you. No. I can't unmute you either. Let's see. Susan, I'm going to go to the next person, but I'm going to come back to you, and I'm going to leave your mic available so you can try to continue to unmute. Meanwhile, we'll go on to Jamie. You could ask your question and unmute.
Hi, thank you so much for the work that you're doing here. Question I have is what lessons you've learned from the sidewalk project that was recently completed from Kirby to Maddox that you will be applying to this next segment of sidewalk project?
Well, that project actually was completed by another team here at the county. But I will tell you some past lessons learned on other projects completed in the Drainsville district and just in the county in general. One of the big lessons learned that we've taken over the years is to make sure we're engaging everyone in the community early. We want to make sure that we hear everyone's concerns about the project up front so we can incorporate them in the design early in the process. Another common issue that arises on projects is utilities. I know some of those Kirby projects had issues with utilities. Some of them were utilities that we weren't aware of when we got to the construction stage of the project, which caused delays. So we would check our designations again early in the design process to make sure that all the utilities that are there are what they're telling us are there. It's hard to design around something that you don't know about. See, other lessons learned, engaging arborists early in the process. We don't want to impact features in the community that we can avoid. And when we bring those disciplines in early in the process, we're able to better incorporate their recommendations.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's go to one more person, then we'll go back to Susan. Our next question can come from Karen.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for this project. I live on Chesterbrook Road and love the sidewalk. My 2 daughters and husband and 2 dogs walk our kids every day to school. So thank you. My question is, I was wondering, this is an area that loses power a lot. As you are addressing the utilities, is there any consideration for burying some of these power lines to really strengthen some of the really Dominion power infrastructure for the area?
Undergrounding for us wouldn't be part of our scope. We would only, if we hit something, a pole or a guy wire or whatever we touch, they would only relocate that specific thing that's impacted by the project. They wouldn't look at undergrounding the utilities in the whole corridor.
Mark, this is Todd Minix. I work with Mark. We have done an undergrounding project in McLean, downtown McLean, I guess probably 4 or 5 years ago now. It's extremely, extremely expensive to go underground. I know Dominion has a program throughout Fairfax County, primarily in residential neighborhoods where they are having severe outage problems due to storms, that they are doing undergrounding on their own. But to add that into this project is really cost prohibitive at this point. As Mark noted, if we are impacting a pole and it has to move, Dominion is going to keep that facility above ground and just relocate it as they need to accommodate the sidewalk project. So hope that answers your question a little bit better.
Thank you, Todd. I'm going to go back to Susan one more time to see if she can unmute here real quick. Susan?
Hi, I think I might have figured it out.
Oh, good.
Sorry about that, and thanks for your patience. I just wanted to add to Kathleen's report and for Mark and others, from a speed standpoint, the speed limit on all of Chesterbrook Road from end to end is 25 miles per hour. We have had 2 volume speed studies done by VDOT. Both of them showed that there's excessive speed on the road. The median speed is 34 miles an hour, so close to 10 miles over. And there are a not insignificant number of cars going over 50 miles an hour on the road every day as it is. And as Kathleen was saying, when you take out trees and put in a sidewalk, you open up sight lines. And while we're not aware of studies specific to our neighborhood that have to do with how sight lines impact traffic, there are lots of third-party studies that show that when you open sight lines, speeds increase. So that is a little bit more data behind what Kathleen was asking about. And we'd be happy to send you all that information if it's helpful. Have you ever had to deal with that before in any other parts of the county where you anticipated that when you put in a sidewalk, the speeds were going to increase?
Well, there also are elements of the project that should help with this. I think there's other studies that are out there that show that if you narrow the travel lane width, that could have an impact on.
And is that part of the project? Because the travel lanes are pretty narrow where you're going to be taking out a lot of the trees. But if that's part of the project, that'd be great for us to know.
Yeah, I think the travel lane width right now is 12 feet wide. And if Adam or Max want to jump on and either verify that or tell me that that's not correct. But I believe that.
No, I think it's that 12 feet correct. Yeah.
So we would be narrowing the travel lane slightly. The curb and gutter that are there would also be a visual object that's right next to the travel lane that could slow traffic to a degree. I mean, I'm not going to tell you that a 6-inch curb offers the same traffic calming effect as a 30-inch mature tree. I'm not going to make that claim, but there are elements to the project that could offer a traffic calming benefit as well.
And I think some of the areas that are today where visually there's some sort of cues to be careful are between Albemarle and I think it's Woodman. So, just to the extent that the design can include kind of, these alternate ways of calming speed where trees once were doing the job would be great.
Mark, if I may add a little bit, the existing roadway width is anywhere between 12 feet and a little bit more, plus the shoulder. With the project, except in the areas of the off tracking, we're proposing 11-foot lane. So the VDOT minimum for this type of a roadway is 11 feet. So we are narrowing the roadway to minimize the property impacts. I don't want to scare anybody with the off tracking, but the general typical section of the side of the roadway we're adding a sidewalk, it will be an 11-foot lane for the most part. So the roadway is getting narrower in that respect. So just wanted to clarify, it's not a 12-foot lane, we're being done an 11-foot lane, except in the areas where the off tracking is. So that should help with some of the speeds, especially with the curb being installed. But the sight lines are something that we have to consider. That's it. Thank you.
Mark? This is Tom Bashadi. I'm the director of Fairfax County's Department of Transportation. With the speed on Chesterbrook being 25 miles an hour, it may qualify for traffic calming. So we will go back and take a look at that.
It does, and we're working on that.
Okay. So we'll be doing that, and my guess is that will play out before we are able to finish the construction of this project.
Thank you all. And I think we have a couple more questions here. Okay. Our next question will come from Brian Zimmer. And if you could unmute yourself, Brian.
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. First, I live way over in Laburnum Street in Chesterbrook Woods. And I want to compliment my neighbors who've commented on this entire session. It's such a pleasure to live with so many intelligent neighbors and how tactfully and with great civility you've addressed this group. So, and I also want to compliment the county on their planning. I have two issues. One is, having lived here for 36 years, I've been fascinated. By the way, my first job out of college was working for the Washington State Highway Commission, doing similar work to the folks in Fairfax County, but on freeways. So I have a little insight into this problem of communicating and planning, maybe more than a little. And I'm concerned that looking at your map, it looks to me like once again, you're going to underestimate the water flow down the brook that feeds Chesterbrook Wood from basically the whole top of the hill. So that with all this cost and expense, $3 million, you're going to once again underestimate the water flow that happens with increasing rapidity due to predictable climate change. As much as I am enthusiastic about many efforts by our government, state and federal, to minimize this, the fact is we live in long-term cycles of weather that will increasingly cause great periodic storms. And if the relatively small attention spent on the underflow for this appears to be once again underestimating the periodic water flow, this would be a pathetic example of $3.5 million spent without correcting the major interruption to traffic there, which is this very large water flow when periodic storms occur. Are you sure that you've really got a handle on this?
I'm going to defer that question.
I mean, I looked at your plans very carefully, and it looks to me like, once again, you're trying to route the water under the road, which is a pathetic I'm going to say this very bluntly as a guy that used to work in your line of work. It looks to me like you really have underestimated the water flow that comes down the brook that feeds at the bottom of the hill.
So you're talking about at North Albemarle?
You got it.
Okay. Well, maybe the best way to answer your question is to tell you how we do our drainage design.
I know how you do your drainage, and Fairfax County has consistently missed the mark throughout the county, not just in our section on this. Because of my personal experience with this, it's maybe over preoccupation, but I would hate to see you do it wrong again.
Well,
really.
Well, we can describe to you.
I know you can describe to me. Have you really done the water flow reviews of the flooding that's occurred there, actually 3 or 4 times a year, sometimes 6 or 7 times a year. Have you really done that analysis? Yes or no?
I could go ahead and jump in here, Mark. My name is Fred Wilkins. I'm the project manager with Public Works Stormwater Planning Division.
That's the man.
Yep. And I'm the project manager for the drainage improvement that we are doing at the North Albemarle and Chesterbrook Road intersection. So right now we know that we have a single 54-inch pipe that is
pathetically undersized after 3 attempts over 30 years.
That is.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, overwhelmed. So right now we're doing plans in order to upsize the pipe at that whole intersection with the goal of trying to put more water into or improving the storm drain system so it passes more water and decreases any roadway flooding to the highest degree that we can.
Sorry.
Sir, if you could let him finish his answer, please, and then you can follow up if you need to.
That's pretty much done right there. I guess if there's a follow-up question, let me know.
Well, can you describe some of the assumptions that you make to do our drainage design, or maybe that would be good for the group, like the size storm or anything like that, any information like that you convey to the group?
Yeah, so we looked at the entire watershed and we're going to look at it for the future imperviousness so that we can kind of get a better idea of what the flows are going to be looking like with future build out and not just what we have today. And we're using that flow data in order to size the pipe. So right now the goal is to try to get the 100-year storm into the pipe system. We currently have active design contracts with our consultants in order to figure out what we can physically put into that pipe system in order to decrease the instances of roadway flooding.
Okay. Thank you, Fred. And I wanted to ask, I think if JP and Claudia have another question, or if their hand is still raised from the earlier time. Oh, they lowered their hand. Okay.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No problem. Okay. And it looks like we don't have any additional questions at this time. And I'm going to see if we have anybody. We don't have any additional people on the phone. So I think we have answered the questions.
All right, so I do want to thank everyone for coming out and listening to our presentation and asking your questions. Just want to remind you that if you think of anything else after the meeting ends, please submit your questions in writing. You can do that again through our website or contacting Max directly. But we want to hear from you, and tell your neighbors about our open house and spread the word that we have a project coming and we want to hear from you. So I look forward to talking to everyone again in the future, and I hope everyone has a great night.